Right now, your brain is making a decision, not the one you think you're making. A decision you won't become aware of for another 7 seconds. Your brain decides before you do, and then lies to you about it. In 1983, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet hooked subjects up to EEG machines and asked them to do something simple: flick their wrist whenever they felt like it. What he found shook the foundations of philosophy, neuroscience, and everything we believe about free will. The brain's electrical activity surged a full half-second before the person consciously decided to move. Later experiments pushed that number even further: 7 seconds. Your brain commits to a choice 7 full seconds before you experience the sensation of choosing. 7 seconds before you know. Think about that. Every decision you made today, every choice you believe you authored, your brain had already written the script. And here's the open loop I want you to hold on to. By the end of this video, I'll reveal what this means for the single most important decision of your life, and why the answer is the opposite of what you expect. Man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills. What you're about to discover will fundamentally change how you understand your own mind, every thought you've ever had, every choice you've ever made. It all looks different after what comes next. In a small lab at the University of California, San Francisco, Benjamin Libet designed one of the most controversial experiments in the history of neuroscience. The setup was deceptively simple. Subjects sat in a chair, watched a specially designed clock with a rotating dart, and were told to flick their wrist whenever they wanted. No schedule, no prompt. Just move when you feel like it, and note the exact position of the dart when you first felt the urge to move. Meanwhile, EEG electrodes tracked their brain activity in real time. What the data revealed was disturbing. A burst of electrical activity called the readiness potential appeared in the brain a full 550 milliseconds before the person consciously decided to move. The brain was already preparing the action before the subject even felt the desire to act. The decision was made before the person knew they had decided. Think about what this means. You're sitting there, you think you're choosing when to move, and your brain is already half a second ahead of you. The conscious experience of deciding was a delayed broadcast of something the brain had already set in motion. Brain decides first, and Libet himself was so troubled by his own findings that he spent the rest of his career trying to find a loophole. But what came next made his results look conservative by comparison. Now here's where it gets truly unsettling. In 2008, neuroscientists John Dylan Haynes and his team at the Bernstein Center in Berlin took Libet's experiment and supercharged it. Instead of EEG, they used functional MRI, which can peer deeper into the brain's activity patterns. Instead of a simple wrist flick, subjects chose between pressing a left or right button. 7 seconds. That's how far in advance the researchers could predict which button the subject would press. 7 seconds before the person experienced the conscious thought of choosing left or right, the brain's prefrontal and parietal cortex had already encoded the decision. If this revelation is making your neurons fire in ways you didn't expect, hit like and subscribe, because the next facts are even more unsettling. Seriously, you're not ready for where this goes. The accuracy wasn't perfect, about 60%, which is significantly above chance. But the implication was devastating. We feel we choose, but we don't. Free will is our most necessary illusion. Your prefrontal cortex is like a director who's already called action, while the actor, your conscious mind, is still reading the script. And the most disturbing part, the subjects had absolutely no idea. They genuinely believed they were choosing in real time. But what happens when you scale this beyond button presses? Stop and think about this for a second. If your brain decides 7 seconds before you're aware, then what exactly is the feeling of deciding? Your sense of choosing might be nothing more than a story your brain tells after the fact. This is what philosophers call the illusion of conscious will. Daniel Wegner at Harvard spent decades studying this phenomenon, and his conclusions were startling. He found that the feeling of willing an action and actually causing that action are two completely separate processes. Your brain performs the action, then it generates the feeling that you chose it. It's like watching a movie where you think you're the director, but you're actually just the audience member who arrived late and convinced yourself you wrote the screenplay. You are the audience. Wegner demonstrated this with an elegant experiment. He had 2 people place their hands near a computer mouse. Through headphones, one person heard instructions about where to move it. When the other person, who heard nothing, saw the mouse move, they sometimes genuinely believed they had moved it. The brain manufactured the experience of willing an action that someone else performed. Your sense of agency can be hacked that easily. And if your brain can fabricate the feeling of choice for actions you didn't even perform, what does that say about the choices you think you're making right now? The answer leads somewhere even darker. But here's what nobody tells you. Some of the most compelling evidence comes from people whose brains were literally cut in half. Split brain patients reveal the brain's most terrifying secret. In the 1960s, Nobel laureate Roger Sperry studied patients who had their corpus callosum severed, the bridge connecting the left and right brain hemispheres. When researchers showed the right hemisphere a command like walk, the patient would stand up and start walking. But here's the chilling part. When asked why they stood up, the left hemisphere, which handles language but hadn't seen the command, didn't say "I don't know." It invented a reason. Confabulation. I felt like getting a drink of water. I needed to stretch my legs. The explanations were confident, detailed, and completely fabricated. The brain didn't just act without conscious decision. It created a convincing narrative afterward to explain actions it never chose. Michael Gazzaniga, who worked alongside Sperry, called the left hemisphere the interpreter. Its job isn't to make decisions. Its job is storytelling. Its job is to construct a coherent story about why you did what you already did. And this interpreter is running inside your head right now, narrating your life, making you believe you're the author of a story that was written before you picked up the pen. What if this goes even deeper than individual choices? If you thought that was disturbing, you're not ready for this. Your brain doesn't just predecide simple button presses. Research shows that up to 95% of your daily cognitive activity is unconscious. Neuroscientist David Eagleman estimates that your conscious mind processes about 40 bits of information per second. Your unconscious brain, 11 million bits per second. You're not driving the car. You're the passenger who thinks they're driving because someone handed them a toy steering wheel. Most of your life is lived on autopilot, and you never even notice. Think about your morning routine. You drove to work, navigated traffic, avoided obstacles, and you remember almost none of it. Your brain handled thousands of micro-decisions without ever consulting your conscious awareness. As the philosopher Alfred North Whitehead observed, civilization advances by extending the number of operations we can perform without thinking about them. But here's the critical question. If your unconscious mind is making the vast majority of your decisions, and your conscious mind is just narrating the story afterward, then who exactly is you? This isn't just philosophy anymore. And the next revelation makes this one look like a warm-up. Let me pause here because this next part changes the entire picture. Your brain doesn't just decide before you're aware. It actively constructs a cover story to make you believe you decided. Neuroscientist Patrick Haggard at University College London demonstrated something remarkable. He found that the brain actually shifts your perception of time to maintain the illusion of free will. Your brain manipulates your experience of when events happen. In his experiments, when people made voluntary movements, their brain compressed the perceived time between their intention and the action, making them feel more in control. But when movements were involuntary, triggered by magnetic stimulation, the brain expanded the perceived time gap, making it feel like something external caused it. Time is a trick. Your brain literally warps your timeline to support its narrative. It's not just lying about who made the decision, it's editing the footage. Your brain is the most sophisticated propaganda machine ever created. Think about how sophisticated this is. An organ that makes decisions unconsciously, then retroactively generates the experience of having chosen, and then manipulates your perception of time to make the whole thing feel seamless. As Daniel Dennett put it, consciousness is the brain's user illusion. So if the brain creates both the decision and the illusion that you made it, what exactly is consciousness for? The answer might surprise you. Now, what I'm about to tell you sounds counterintuitive, but it might be the most important insight in this entire video. If free will is an illusion, why did evolution create it? Why would the brain waste energy constructing an elaborate fiction of conscious choice? The illusion of free will might be humanity's greatest evolutionary advantage. Think about it from evolution's perspective. A creature that believes it has agency, that believes its choices matter, behaves differently than one that doesn't. It plans, it strategizes, it takes responsibility. It learns from mistakes because it believes those mistakes were its own. Neuroscientist Michael Graziano at Princeton proposes that consciousness evolved as an attention schema. A simplified model the brain creates of its own processing, the same way it creates simplified models of the external world. Your brain creates a map of reality, and consciousness is the brain's map of itself. It's not accurate, maps never are, but it's useful. The feeling of choosing isn't about truth, it's about survival. The self is not a thing, but a process, an ongoing creation of the brain. And understanding this process doesn't weaken you. In fact, what science found next shows it might be the key to making better decisions. But the path there goes through some very uncomfortable territory. Here's where the story takes a dark turn. In 2002, psychologists Kathleen Vohs and Jonathan Schooler conducted an experiment that terrified the scientific community. They had two groups of participants read passages. One group read a text arguing that free will is an illusion. The other read a neutral passage. Then both groups took a test where they could easily cheat. Chaos. The group told free will doesn't exist cheated significantly more. They also became more aggressive, less helpful, and less grateful. When people start believing they have choice, they start behaving as though their choices matter. No free will equals no morality. This created a genuine paradox for scientists. The evidence increasingly suggests free will as we experience it isn't real. But believing it's not real makes people worse. As Saul Smolansky, a philosopher at the University of Haifa, argues, we need the illusion of free will to maintain moral responsibility and human dignity. The truth about free will might be too dangerous for society to accept. Some scientists have literally debated whether these findings should be shared publicly. Think about that. A scientific truth so destabilizing that researchers questioned whether humanity should know about it. But remember that open loop from the beginning. What this means for your most important decision. We're almost there, and the answer demolishes everything you might expect. This is the one that kept me up at night, and it's where the entire story pivots. Remember Benjamin Libet, the scientist who started all of this. The man who proved the brain decides before you're aware. He found something else. Something that almost everyone overlooks. The brain initiates decisions unconsciously, but consciousness gets a veto. Libet discovered that even though the readiness potential fires before conscious awareness, there's a roughly 200 millisecond window between when you become aware of the urge and when the action is executed. In that window, you can stop. You can override the brain's unconscious decision. He called it the conscious veto. Your brain proposes, but consciousness can dispose. You may not have free will, but you might have free won't. Think about what this means for every impulse you've ever had, every angry word you almost said, every temptation you resisted, every time you paused before reacting. That pause, that was your conscious veto in action. Between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies our freedom. You're not the initiator of your decisions, but you might be the editor, and that distinction changes everything. Comment which revelation hit you the hardest, the 7-second gap, the brain's cover story, or Libet's loophole. I bet most of you will pick the one nobody expects. So here's the answer I promised you at the beginning. The most important decision of your life. It's not which career to pursue, not who to marry, not where to live. The most important decision is whether to become aware of how your brain actually works. Because here's the paradox nobody tells you. Knowing that your brain decides before you're aware doesn't take away your power. It gives you power. Every meditation practice, every moment of mindfulness, every pause before reacting, these are exercises in expanding that 200 millisecond veto window. You're training your consciousness to catch the brain's proposals before they become actions. Awareness is the upgrade. The ancient Stoics understood this 2,000 years before Libet ever attached an electrode. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Your brain makes decisions before you're aware. That's the science. But awareness itself can change which decisions survive the veto. That's the power. You are not the author of your thoughts, but you can become the editor of your actions. Free will might be your brain's most convincing story. But the ability to rewrite that story, that might be the most real thing about you. If you made it this far, prove it. Comment conscious veto if this changed how you understand your own mind. The truth is stranger than anything you could make up. Your brain is making a decision right now about what to watch next, about whether this video mattered. And yes, the neural activity for that choice has already fired before you feel it. But now you know something most people never will. You know the mechanism you've seen behind the curtain. And knowing how the trick works is the first step to not being fooled by it. Benjamin Libet gave us the science. Viktor Frankl gave us the philosophy. And Marcus Aurelius gave us the practice. The 7-second gap is real. Your brain does decide before you're aware. But that 200 millisecond veto window, that slim margin between impulse and action, that is where you live. That is where your humanity exists. Not in the origin of your thoughts, but in what you do with them once they arrive. Train that window. Expand it. Guard it. Because in those 200 milliseconds lies everything that separates a reaction from a response, a habit from a choice, a life lived on autopilot from a life lived on purpose. The unexamined life is not worth living. The truth is stranger than anything you could make up.